stores and/or the Star Ledger, the two newspapers of record. A notice has been posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building adjacent to the municipal clerk's office. Roll call.
Mr. Wiley.
Here.
Ms. Martins is absent. Mr. Benavanga.
Here.
Ms. Scott.
Here.
Mr. Johnson.
Here.
Mr. McNeil.
Here.
Mr. Graves.
Here.
Ms. Ricketts is absent. Mr. Champion.
Here. There being a quorum present, this meeting is now declared open. At this time, Mr. Manguso, are there any communications?
Are there no communications at this time?
Hearing none. Hearing none. Our first order of business will be the adoption of a resolution for calendar number 3441 Robin Fu, located at 281 through 283 Oswald Place, Block 5811, Lot 14. Applicant wishes to expand non-conforming use to permit a parking lot for the dwelling.
Mr. Chairman.
Excuse me. Excuse me. You've all had a chance to read the resolution. At this time, are there any board members who would like to comment, make changes or modification to this resolution as it is written? Hearing none, may I have a motion and a second?
Mr. Miller, Mr. Chair.
Second. Resolution is read and/or as read and modified is accurately memorializing the previous findings of this board.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Wiley.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
McNeil.
Yes.
Champion.
Yes. Our next order of business is calendar number 3439, 1865 Morris Avenue, LLC, located at 1865 Morris Avenue, Block 2315, Lot 12.01. Applicant wishes to construct a three-story mixed-use commercial and residential building. Mr. Hale, would you like to begin?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and board members. Thank you so much for being out this evening and appreciate your continued service on this board. This is a great reuse of this property. I know, Mr. Chairman, you and I always kid about what it was. For years, the Beard Temple Oster Tag Agency in the township there. And but what we're looking now is to renovate the property, to demolish the building, construct a new building for my friend Ralph Salermo is seated here. He's going to be moving his office from Elizabeth to Union, and really looking forward to working on this project. This property is in the DT zone, the downtown transition zone, which certainly envisions this type of mixed-use project, having the commercial aspect and the residential aspect. The residential, obviously, having foot traffic and supporting the Union Center Business District. We're before this board because we do need a floor area ratio variance. It's not a significant variance, and we'll have clear testimony that shows that the site can accommodate the proposed use. So again, we're looking at a three-story mixed-use building, 14 units, 2 studio apartments, 4 one-bedroom, several two-bedroom apartments. We do have the review letter from Collier's. We don't have any issues with that. We'll address that. There were no comments from the police department, and we did get the comments from the fire department, and we'll address those. We have no problem complying with any of the terms and conditions from the fire department. So if there were, and I guess before, I know that Mr. Pansula will want to mark the application and plans.
Yes, Mr. Hale, good evening. I did mark A1, the application as it was submitted. A2 is the site plan of Dynamic Engineering, which consists of 11 sheets. A3 will be the traffic impact assessment that was offered through Corey Chase and Craig Pertboy of Dynamic Traffic. A4 is the boundary survey and topographic survey that was submitted dated April 5th, consisting of 1 sheet, and A5 is the architectural plans for the mixed use as proposed, consisting of 5 sheets. So it's A1 through A5 for the record.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Pansula. So what I'd like to begin with is we'll call upon Diego Duarte, our site engineer from Dynamic Engineering, to take us through existing conditions and then what's proposed by way of improvements. Then we'll move on to our architect, traffic, and then planning testimony. So.
Can I ask the witness to swear or affirm that the testimony you're going to provide this evening is the truth and the whole truth?
I do.
If you could, for the record, state and spell your name with your business affiliation.
Tiago Duarte, Tiago Duarte. Business affiliation is senior principal at Dynamic Engineering. Business address 50 Park Place, Newark, New Jersey.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Duarte, if you could please just briefly give the board the benefit of your work, educational experience, obviously area of expertise as a professional engineer, and licenses you hold, and confirm that they're in full force and effect.
Sure. I graduated Rutgers University with a Bachelor's of Science in Civil Engineering in 2011, practicing in the field of civil engineering, specifically land development. Since then, so just over 13 years of experience in the field. I am licensed in the state of New Jersey. My license is current as of this evening, and I've been
The
accepted.
board will accept his credentials.
Great, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. All right, so Mr. Duarte, if you could take us through, and I know you put the drive in there, if you could take us through existing conditions, and then if we could move on to what's proposed by way of improvements to the property.
Sure thing.
And if there are items that were submitted as part of the package, you could just identify them. If it's a new exhibit, we'll have to mark that as, and would begin with
Said you didn't know I used this.
A6 would be the next exhibit.
So to start with, I'm just going to orient the board with the where the site is and located on an aerial exhibit. It's today's date prepared by my office.
And that was not previously submitted,
Correct.
correct?
So this will be A6.
A6, okay.
And it's very similar to sheet 2 of the plan that was submitted within the site plans. The color is a little different to make it a little easier to see on the screen this evening. So as everyone just heard, the site's located at 1865 Morris Avenue, which is also State Highway 82. It's block 2315, lot 12.01. The site is currently fully developed. I'll zoom into the center of the sheet. Zooming into the sheet just to highlight that there's an existing two-story office building, a vacant office building on the subject site, and it's surrounded by paved parking areas basically up to the lot line. So the site is fully developed under the existing conditions. Access to the site is provided from the state highway via one driveway, and the site's located in the DT zone. There are residential uses to the top of the page, but along the Morris Ave right-of-way corridor, there are mixed uses, commercial uses along that corridor. Switching over now, this will be A7. This is a site plan rendering, basically a colorized version of the plan that was submitted with the application. We did superimpose the landscaping just to make that more visible on the...
Why don't we note that as a separate exhibit since it's colorized? It was
Yes,
A6 for the record, colorized page 7?
Well, yeah, this would be A7,
Oh, I'm sorry, A6 was
the aerial.
aerial.
the area, got it.
Yep. Thanks, Rob.
So what we are here for this evening is to obtain approval for the proposed mixed-use building. So as I have colored here, the mixed use will have a 2,400 square feet ground floor area. That's the darker orange color that's on the screen. And associated with that is the off-street parking area. So the parking area is the beige color, just to denote the difference between what's at the ground level and what's parking for off-street for cars. Above this ground level, there are 2 floors of residential housing units, residential dwellings. The total footprint of the building is 7,941 square feet. So that is a less than the overall lot. So the overall lot is 10,000 square feet. Again, it's fully developed on the existing condition, pavement right up to the property lines. And what we're proposing to do, drop the building in, provide compliant setbacks for the front yard and side yard, so we're providing a 5-foot setback for the building on the front and the two sides, and a 5.6 setback on the rear. The rear is a variance, but again, we're really moving the building and the development in from what's out there today, so it's a less active use, and the parking is going to be enclosed within the building area. What we're doing around the perimeter of the building is providing green area and landscape buffering to screen the proposed use from the adjacent properties. Again, the lot area being 10,000 square feet is undersized for the zone. The zone requires 12,500 foot lots, so we are slightly undersized there, which also plays into the deviations we have from the building coverage, which is exceeding the requirement. So 50% building coverage is permitted. We have 79%. And the impervious coverage, 80% is permitted, but we are currently 100%, so we are improving that existing condition by bringing it down to 82.9%. As for the parking, we propose 17 spaces within that ground floor area. We've got 1 ADA space and 3 EV spaces, so we're complying with the state requirements for EV chargers for this type of use. The ground floor area, just going back to that for a quick second, the office area is, the commercial space in the building is located adjacent to the right-of-way, so close to Morris Ave, and that has an area of 1,434 square feet. The remaining area on the ground level is just amenities for the residential dwellings, so you have an access area, entry into the building, main areas, stairways, elevators to get up to the residential units. And we also have a trash facility that will store all the trash generated by the development. And I'll get into that in a little more detail shortly. Access to the site will remain similar to today. So we're going to maintain a full movement driveway on Morris Avenue. So we'll be able to get in and out of the site very similar to the conditions today. And then we provide a full two-way access aisle through the entire parking area on the ground level. Important to note that and the architect will touch upon this in a minute, but the rear area of the parking area is actually open. So while it is covered, so there's a level housing on top, it's open on the sides to just facilitate best ventilation of that area and bring in natural light. As part of the improvements, so again, we're reducing impervious coverage, so we're not proposing any additional stormwater management measures. It does comply with the ordinance and the state requirements for meeting stormwater reductions. Again, we're reducing by almost 1,000, by over 1,700 square feet the impervious coverage when compared to today. The building will be serviced by all new utilities, so we'll have water, gas, electric to the building. All the existing services to the existing building will be removed as part of the application. We've got new lighting in the parking area and along the front of the building to provide adequate lighting for access and for parking area and pedestrian circulation. And then on the landscaping, so we really focused our plantings on the rear, so the northern limit of the property where it meets the residential lots to the north. In total, we've got two ornamental trees proposed. We're going to put those in the front yard along the highway. And we've got 38 shrubs. That's a mix of evergreen and deciduous shrubs to provide buffering, again, to those uses that are adjacent to us. And as for signage, there's going to be 2 signs, one building mounted sign and one window sign. The window sign will be for the office use, and the building sign for future tenant. part of the application, we've submitted to the Somerset Union Soil Conservation District. We have approval there. We'll also need DOT approval for the changes to the use, but that is all subject to be reviewed and approved by the DOT. I just want to go back to parking for a second because there are some minor waivers that we require. Parking space 9 by 20 is required, and we're proposing 9 by 18, which is an industry standard. And for residential uses, 9 by 18 is the requirement for this in the governing RSIS code for residential developments. We've got parking setbacks waivers as well. So 5 feet is required from the building due to the condition where we're having parking underneath the building. We have a 0-foot setback. Parking from property lines is supposed to be 10 feet. We've got 5.9 feet. That is an improvement from the existing condition today where there's parking right up to the property line. So we're moving the parking away from the adjacent uses and putting it in a enclosed parking area. And then there's a parking waiver for the residential zone where 10 feet is required. Then we've got 5.9 feet as well there. Where again 0 feet exists today, so it is an improvement from the conditions of the parking field as they are today. I'm going to bring up one more exhibit.
In this exhibit, I believe, which would be A8, is a response to the fire department comment?
Yes, correct. So just get the zoom right. So this is just a site plan exhibit. We took basically the plan that was submitted with the application and did some red line edits to show the changes that we would propose to comply with the fire comments that we received, and also just to change the location of the trash, where as submitted we had it up near the rear of the office space. We've relocated that to the side to be closer to the parking field. The intent there is for building management to have a closer route to bring the trash out to the right-of-way. We envision the private hauler will stage temporarily within the state highway, and they'll pick up the trash from there, and management will then bring the bins or cans back into the trash room where they'll be enclosed. We're also moving the EV spaces. The fire comments we received had concerns about potential fire and emergency issues relating to charging EV vehicles. So we did move it to an area where, it's open to the outside, but it's still enclosed. In this case, since the entire parking field is enclosed by a building, you have the residential level above, we're not able to fully remove the spaces from being covered, but at least they're in a better spot for ventilation and access from the inside of the building or the outside on that 5-foot strip adjacent to the building. We went pretty quick there, but I think I did everything. If there's any questions, happy to answer them.
And from an engineering standpoint, I know we have traffic and architectural testimony. Any problem complying? I know you've already addressed the fire comments from an engineering standpoint. Any problem complying with any of the terms, conditions in the July 31, 2024 letter from Colliers?
No issues complying with that.
Great. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, no further questions. Mr. Duarte at this time.
Are there any board members that would like to question the witness?
I just have one, and it's more of a clarification concerning the additional load that will be placed on the township's utilities, sewer, water. Have you guys taken a look at that and made sure that existing system can accommodate the additional loading?
Yes, so actually on that, the sewer demand, there was a question in the review memo if a TWA will be required, and it will not be required. We're below the threshold. So basically, the project will generate approximately 2,800 gallons of sanitary flow without taking credit for the existing use, which we haven't calculated that yet, so it'd be even less, where the threshold for TWA is 8,000. So We don't think that that's a significant increase, or it will result in a significant increase, and we definitely will work with the township on the utilities, and the review will be part of the next steps in the application.
Are there any other board questions?
And just to clarify, traffic will be, or
We-
parking will be covered by?
Yes, we have our traffic engineer here. Yeah, thank you, Mr. McNeil.
Are there any other board members that would like to question the witness? Hearing none, are there any members of the public that would like to question the testimony this witness has provided? Hearing none.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to now call upon Paul Schwartz, our architect.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Can I ask the witness to swear or affirm that the testimony you provide is the truth and the whole truth?
I do.
And for the record, just state and spell your name with your affiliation.
I'm Paul Swartz, S-W-A-R-T-Z. I'm the senior partner of USA Architects based in 20 North Dowdy Avenue in Somerville, New Jersey.
Thank you.
All right. And Schwartz, if you could please give the board the benefit of your credentials.
Sure. I've graduated from college from Tulane University in 1976, so I'm an oldie. Been around for a long time, licensed in many states, including New Jersey, and also a professional planner in New Jersey as well. I've testified amongst very similar boards throughout the state of New Jersey.
We'll accept his credentials.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right, Mr. Schwartz, I see you already have the rendering up there. If you could take us, please, through the floor plans and elevations for the proposed building.
That's great. So what you're looking at right now is essentially a perspective view from Morris Avenue looking towards the building. The idea is that, as Tiago had mentioned, on the lower level, on the lower left-hand side is where the entrance to the office area would be, as well as the lobby for the residential above. You'll note that the parking entrance is off of Morris. The curb cut is there. The idea, again, is we're getting 17 parking spaces below the building. And to Tiago's point, in order to meet the ventilation requirements of a garage, it has to be more than 50% open. And so I'll show you on the elevations very quickly. For the most part, it's totally open.
By the way, this is a new exhibit, correct?
Well, it's part of our original submission.
Was
so I
it
don't
part
know.
of the, was
I
it
didn't
color?
mark, let's mark it A9 as a colorized
Okay.
version of the proposed site.
Okay. Great, thanks.
Essentially, the building, it's a relatively simple building. We've got brick on the upper part with glass into the individual units. Depending whether it's a studio, one bedroom or two bedroom, you've got a lot of natural light, high ceilings, which is nice. And then below is a decorative CMU material, decorative concrete block product. And then on the top, you'll see a metal cornice that sort of caps off the building. All right, this is going to be a little hard to read. I think Tiago had noted it before. So in the lower left-hand corner, you can see there's a 1,438 square foot office space. That actually our client might be actually taking the space. And then there are two stairs, along with, as Tiago had mentioned, there's a large area for trash. There's a utility closet in this area as well, along with the 17 parking spaces. It's a very simple plan. As you can see, it's almost a square, a simple rectangle. It's comprised of essentially 7 units per floor, and it consists of studio, one studio on each floor, and then we've got 2 bedrooms and 1 bedrooms, and the composite number for both floors is 14 units. Second floor, very similar to the first floor. And a roof plan, the only thing I can note on the roof plan here really is the fact that we are sloping internally, so you won't see any drains or any kind of rain leaders on the outside of the building to kind of keep it kind of a clean look. And these are just some simple elevations. I think they're a little bit small, but the idea is primarily is that the overall elevation of the building, in fact, I'm going to go back to here. So essentially from the ground level up to the top, is essentially, it's to the roof line, it's 35 feet, and then an additional 2 feet or so for the parapet. So the overall height is 37 feet, and the allowable is 40. So we meet within those constraints. That's all I've got.
Okay, just briefly, also from the fire department, I know Mr. Duarte covered the fourth comment. Just want to touch on, they want the fire sprinkler system designed to the NFPA 13.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
And that the fire monitoring alarm system will be installed,
Yep,
and that the fire-rated stair towers.
correct.
Okay, so we have no problem with any of those?
None whatsoever. We have to actually design the
Okay.
code, so.
And from an architectural standpoint, any problem complying with any of the terms and conditions, the July 31, 2024 letter from Colliers?
None, there's no issues whatsoever.
Great, thank you. No further questions, Mr. Chairman?
Are there any board members that would like to question the witness? Hearing none, are there any members of the public that would like to question the witness's testimony? Hearing none,
Great,
Counselor?
thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, Paul. I'd now like to call upon Craig Baragoy, our traffic engineer.
Yeah, thanks. Go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Paraguay. Can I ask you to swear or affirm that the testimony you provide this evening is the truth and the whole truth?
Yes, it is.
And just for the record, state and spell your name with your affiliation.
Sure, my name is Craig Paragoy, P-E-R-E-G-O-Y, with Dynamic Traffic, business address 245 Main Street, Chester, New Jersey.
Thank you. And is there any change in credentials from the last time you were qualified as a traffic expert in this, before this board?
No.
Okay, I would note that for the record, Mr. Chairman.
Great, thank you. And you did learn everything you know from Joe Steigery here.
I guess so.
All right, if you could please provide an overview. I know you prepared a traffic impact study, which was marked as A3. If you could please take us through the results of your study and also touch on the municipal provisions for the shared parking.
Yeah, so our traffic study looked at two things. One is the traffic impacts of the project, and the second is the parking. So briefly, I'll just touch on the traffic impacts. We do have an existing building there. It was a medical office building. Vacant now, but it was obviously at one point occupied and generated traffic. So what I did is make a comparison of the traffic projections that the ITE, or the Institute of Transportation Engineers, would tell me for that existing building and then for the proposed building, and make that comparison. And what we're focused on is the morning and evening peak hours, the busiest rush hour time periods, commuter hours. And basically that prior medical office building compared to what we have proposed here, the 14 units in the office space, is a wash in the morning peak hours. No change in trips. Both of them generate 9 peak hour trips. In the evening, that prior office would have generated 11 trips, and we're at 10 trips. So we're actually at 1 trip reduction. So essentially a wash from a traffic impact standpoint from what was there. The difference being we're consolidating to 1 conventional driveway and cleaning up the access, as opposed to the 2 that the office had. They even had a parking space hanging out into the right-of-way. All that's going to be fixed and cleaned up. And we do gain 1 parking space on the street in front by getting rid of that other driveway. In terms of the parking, your ordinance in this zone for a mixed-use development allows for a shared parking scenario. And essentially that's because obviously residential parking is peaking overnight when everybody's at home, and the office is going to be during the daytime. So some of those parking spaces can be shared. And the ordinance does cite using the ITE procedures for coming up with that. Basically, it gives me a percentage of the peak demand for each hour of the day, and then I multiply that by your ordinance requirement and find out the peak instantaneous demand in any hour of the day. Now, in this case, we do have 8 spaces that are in tandem configuration, so those are going to be reserved, obviously, for the 2-bedroom residential units. So those are essentially considered 100% occupied throughout the day. So I did that shared parking analysis with the other grouping of spaces. The base requirement from your ordinance is 3 spaces for the office, and then the ordinance defers to the RSIS, which calculates 27, which is very high for the residential, for a total of 30. When you go through the analysis, because that office parking is so low, basically that overnight residential number governs, and it's 27 total parking spaces required after the shared parking. We do have the EV parking spaces, which the state gives us the credit for, up to 10% reduction. So the technical parking requirement is 25 parking spaces. We have 17 provided. Now, the ITE also in that parking generation manual gives us suggested parking ratios rather than look at the RSIS and the ordinance. If I use those ratios, the office still requires 3, so right on the ordinance. But the residential is reduced to 15. Basically, they give you a parking ratio per bedroom. We have 22 bedrooms here, and it's 0.68 per bedroom is the average peak demand. Same thing happens, though, that 15 overnight governs. Again, we have 17. So based on sort of a realistic look at it with the ITE numbers, there's enough parking in there. From your ordinance, we are 8 short, essentially, which in this zone, there is a payment in lieu of parking procedure that's available for that. But I think realistically, the 15 is going to work here. And that's the quick summary of the report.
Okay. And just to confirm that because there were some comments in the Collier's review letter regarding DOT, this will require DOT approval.
Yes, the only reason that we need DOT approval here is because we're redoing the driveways. If we kept those existing driveways because there's no change in traffic, they wouldn't require approval, but we have applied to the DOT. We submitted our application, they're still reviewing it. And we're obviously bound by whatever they tell us to do here.
And you don't anticipate any issue with DOT approving?
No, other than how long it takes them.
Great, thank you. I have no further questions at this time, Mr. Paragore.
Are there any board members that would like to question the testimony of this witness?
Just the one, in terms of the calculation of parking demand, your summary is a little different than what Collier's came up with. Have you seen their calculation?
I have, and if you were building a standalone office, the way your ordinance is, it would be a 1 per 300 square foot requirement. But the shared parking section, the chapter that's on shared parking, and it's only for the DC and DT zone, so this zone, so it wouldn't apply everywhere. But that gives you a 1 per 500 for the office as the base rate. So that's the difference.
Have you discussed that with Collier's? Do they agree with your analysis?
We haven't, but we will.
Yeah. We'll get confirmation
everything
from
else
Mr. Venezia that is in fact the correct calculation.
It took me a minute to find it, too. I did the same,
Yeah,
I did the same thing they did, and I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah, it's a little different because normally you have a standard that is across the board throughout the municipality. Here, because of the location close to downtown, they lessened the parking requirement.
Which was good planning, makes sense.
And even for those 8 spaces that were short, what's anticipated for those folks that may pull up and not have a parking space?
Well, I anticipate, based on actual ITE counts and data, that the 17 will be enough, that actually 15 with the shared parking would be enough parking spaces. It's the ordinance that's the difference, and part of the reason is the ordinance just defers to the residential site improvement standards, which have very high ratios. They don't take into account the fact that you're in downtown or there's mass transit available, the type of apartments. It just assumes that everything's like a garden apartment complex out in the middle of nowhere. Now, RSIS recently changed those rates to be maximums and not minimums. So now the RSIS says no board can require more than these number of spaces without getting an exception from them. But your ordinance just refers to the RSIS number, so I have to assume that it's those rates, not going through that procedure. But realistically, if it didn't say that, if we were just straight residential, the RSIS would govern over the ordinance, and 15 would be the number that I'd give you that would be appropriate. So
As long as
it's all technicalities. It's very
confirm that with Collier's, who's the town engineer.
We will.
Just following
I just
up, though,
have-
Mr. Paragoy, on Mr. O'Neill's question, if there is overflow, I mean, where do you envision it happening? I mean, the Collier's references pilot spaces available from the township. What do you see happening if that person does pull up at night and those 15 spaces are full? They're visiting, it's a third car in a unit, whatever, what, from a traffic perspective, where do those people go and where do they park?
There is a public parking lot across the street, and right over here, lot 12. which is very close walking distance. There's also parking allowed on the street there. It's time restricted during the day, but overnight, a visitor could park just right on the street, right in front of the building, which I suspect would be easier.
So no objection to note that if it becomes a problem in the future, it could, that you recognize the option through the township pilot permit program that could be available to
Yep.
alleviate any impact to the neighborhood.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And it's a convenient location for this.
I know the college kind of references it, but doesn't. I just wanted to get the clarity on what's envisioned with that, as long as the applicant knows it's an option, and then if it becomes feasible or necessary, more importantly, that we implement.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
I just have
Ms. Scott
one,
has a question.
I just have one question. We're talking about the parking, and I don't want to be redundant, but I did hear you say that the 2 bedrooms would have reserved parking.
Yeah, it's because there's 4 spaces there in a tandem configuration, so it's almost like a driveway with a garage and the driveway behind it, so neighbors could share keys or something like that, but that's not really practical. It's better to
Right.
assign those to the same unit. I guess it doesn't necessarily have to be the 2-bedroom if a couple lives in a 1-bedroom and have 2 cars. It would just be assigned to a single unit, so you wouldn't have strangers having to deal with each other's
Okay,
cars.
all right, because the way I thought I understood it was the 2-bedroom. I guess because there's a 2-bedroom and not a 1 or a studio, that they would have the right to have reserved.
Yeah, which makes sense, and that's what Colliers recommends, but realistically, as the building's tenanted up, whatever makes sense. You don't want to leave those vacant. If somebody moves into the 2-bedroom, uses one as their home office and doesn't have a car, why would you give them parking spaces?
Or if one of the 2 bedrooms uses the electric vehicle spot.
That too. Yeah, so it'll be how it works. And it could
Well, I
work
mean,
for the
there- I
office
mean-
too, if it's 2 employees who could do it,
We've seen this, and I know the state really, in my humble opinion, hasn't thought out the impact from the EV credits and use of spaces, but
I don't
as long as
disagree.
the applicant's willing to work with the township, if it becomes a problem 2 years from now, that's all we really can do, and I'll reference it in the resolution, because both the applicant and the township, I think, are on the same page to satisfy the tenants of this building and not be a burden to the neighborhood. So it's in everybody's interest.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
Are there any other board members that would like to question the testimony this witness has provided? Hearing none, are there any members of the public that would like to question the testimony this witness has provided? Hearing none, Counselor?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to call as our last witness, our professional planner, Mr. Victor Vinegra.
Good evening, Mr. Vinegar. Can I ask you to swear or affirm that the testimony you provide this evening is the truth and the whole truth?
I do.
And just for the record, state and spell your name with your affiliation.
Okay, my name is Victor, middle initial E, last name Vinegra, V-I-N-E-G-R-A. I'm a principal with the firm of Harbor Consultants located at 320 North Avenue East, Cranford, New Jersey. I've been before this board, but probably about a year and a half ago.
Yeah, any changes to your qualifications when you qualified and appeared before this board the last time?
A little less hair maybe, but
That happens.
So noted for the record.
All right, so Mr. Vinegra, if you could, I assume the board will accept this
Yes,
qualification.
the
Great,
board will
thank you.
accept his
All right,
credentials.
Mr. Vinegra, as I indicated in my opening, we're before this board in a zone where the use is permitted, encouraging this downtown DT zone. We're here before this board because of the slight variance for floor area ratio, but if you could please briefly provide the justification for both the C variances being sought, design waivers, and the D variance.
yes, as Mr. Hales pointed out, the reason we're here is because it's called a D4 variant for floor area ratio. And we're in a transition area, downtown transition. One building over from us is the down. Excuse me? Well, maybe I'll just point it out here on the screen with the mouse. Over this way, one lot over, we would be in the downtown core zone, and we wouldn't have to be before this zone. We're 16% over the maximum floor area permitted by ordinance. That's why we're here tonight again. So, but it meets the height, it meets more or less the building coverage and everything else. It's just a floor area ratio, which we don't meet. Again, if we were 2 lots over, there is no floor area ratio. We could be as much density as permitted. So with that, This site existing, as people know, it's right across the street, it's 100% impervious. It's an older site, no storm sewer in there, no landscaping almost whatsoever on the site. So it's the building that's been there for quite some time and has met its time. And this use here, the building I feel is aesthetically pleasing, is a nice new building in that area. We're going to be reducing the amount of impervious coverage, going to add some landscaping to the site, and also going to add stormwater detention for the storms and to make overall a total improvement to the site. And I'll give the reasons quickly now. So we're here today because there's a D4 deviation, D4 use variance of an expansion in excess of the permitted floor area. So we're going to give you special reasons, which are part of the Medici test. And that would be, you have to meet certain criteria. As you know, you've been on this board. One is A, to encourage municipal action for the appropriate use of lands in a manner. I can't see a better place. Both the office and retail use on the first floor and the apartments are all permitted in the zone. We're just here for this FAR variance. Item E, to promote establishment of appropriate population densities and concentrations that contribute. Yes, we're downtown. Yes, we're going to be building new housing downtown. And the beauty of this housing is elevated. So people, as we get up there in age, we don't want to walk the stairs anymore. People who want to rent this, fully elevated apartment. G, to provide sufficient space in appropriate locations for a variety of uses, which include residential. And I, to promote a desirable visual environment through creative development. I feel that the architect has done a fantastic job with this building. I like the brick. I like the way they tinted the windows. I think the board would find it's a very attractive building. Special reasons or different reasons, and I'm going to give you a couple case laws. Burbridge, Mine Hill. Again, the special reasons which I just stated. A, E, G, and L. And a few case laws that back that up are Kessler v. Bunker, Alpine Tower versus Mayor and Council of Pine Ridge. Some positive items here, not just planning, or again, existing site, 100% impervious. We're going down to in the 80s. The majority uses on the east side of Morris Avenue are all 100% impervious. So when you go and walk those areas now, you'll notice that almost all these old buildings are 100% impervious. That's why when you rezone the area, you had this transition zone created. There's other buildings in downtown that have 4 times the amount of FAR, such as the Centurion, and I think this is, again, a low-level attractive building. We only exceed by 16%, and again, I think another good reason is that the building is fully sprinklered. Again, safety between higher first floor, as the architect testified, the nicer roof heights here, the more modern roof heights. Mr. Salermo is proposing the taller windows. It's very attractive windows. These are all things that add to the improvement of the downtown of Union, and it also adds to one of the reasons this board has to grant this variance. There's one variance for the rear yard. I'll enter this as A. Has anything been entered yet?
Which one is that, Vic?
This is just a site plan. You've already have sheet 4.
Yeah, it should be part of, I guess, A2, Rob?
The architect is A5.
Oh,
Okay.
all right.
Part of what he already has. I show that we have one variance here. We're supposed to have a 20-foot rear yard setback. We have a 6.5, but that's to our stair tower. And the only building it affects is someone's garage. The main part of the building is 48 feet. The requirement in the ordinance is 10. The vast majority of the building is 48 feet. It's just our stair tower back here. And the only 2 structures that it affects are our neighbor's garage. So I feel, again, that this building will not be shadowing upon their home, and that is one of the C bulk variances we're requesting. A couple of the C bulk variances are the coverage. It is existing 100% impervious The zone permits 80, we're asking for 82.9. Building coverage, 50%, we're doing a 79%, so that's a coverage, but again, the impervious we're reducing. The other two minor variances are pre-existing lot size variances, which are grandfathered in. Briefly on the negative criteria, the board has to have two reasons, you use special reasons, the positive reasons why this is a good project, and I think I just testified to those, and then there's the negative reasons. Is there a negative situation caused by this application to the municipality and to its citizens? And the negative criteria are two parts: without substantial detriment to the public good. And I feel that since the project is a permitted use in the zone, there's no impact to the public because it's residential and a permitted residential zone, and it's office and a permitted office zone. And the project is in compliance with the vast majority of the standards, except for 16% exceeding on the FAR. But if we were one house over, we would be in keeping with the FAR. And also I feel that there is no detriment to the public because we're taking a building that's not as attractive and we're bringing in new elevated, tall ceilinged, tall windowed apartment into an area with some good high quality housing. And item number 2 is without substantial detriment to the intent and purpose of your zone plan and zoning ordinance. And as I stated before, there is no detriment to your zone plan because we meet the zone as far as the requirements, residential and office, and we meet the zone for the vast majority of the ordinance, except for those two items, those 3 items which I testified before. A couple of bulk variances, the C2 variances, and the D4 variance. And on the C2 variance, one typical example that planners use is Kaufman v. Warren. Kaufman v. Warren, it's that, does it meet the neighborhood? Are we asking for a variance and we stick out like a sore thumb? No, the vast majority of the neighborhood has similar characteristics of short front yards of pre-existing and short rear yards. So in that case, we meet the intent of the zone plan, the intent of your zoning ordinance, and we also meet and exceed, I feel, the neighborhood for the citizens. And that sums up my testimony.
Are there any board members that would like to question the witness? Hearing none, are there any members of the public that would like to question the testimony this witness has provided? At this time, are there any members of the public that would like to comment or express concerns on this application? Hearing none, Counselor, would you like to sum up?
Yes, just briefly, and again, thank the board and the board professionals, the staff for their time. Yeah, this is an exciting project. I think you see from the building, it's a beautifully designed building. And again, going back to the old days there, you had the old, Gary and I laugh about when we come in on these projects about what it used to be. The building is vacant. Mr. Salermo acquired the property, looking to build this great new building. Right now, 100% impervious. We're now introducing landscaping to it, both along the rear and the sides. The parking, I think we more than adequately addressed any concerns with respect to that. And it's exactly the type of use, this mixed-use project and development that we want to see in this DT zone. So I think for all of those reasons and our willingness to comply with all the comments from the Collier's review and the fire department, we respectfully request that the board grant this application and look forward to this project moving forward and hopefully within the next century get the DOT approval. So, but thank you very much and look forward to us moving forward.
Thank you, Counselor. At this time, we're going to counsel this. Mr. Bentavegna, would you like to begin?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Based on the testimony this evening, I feel the variance was justified and the property is well-suited for the use. I also want to say the building is definitely going to bring a nice enhancement to that area on Morris Avenue. So I'll be voting yes tonight.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I agree with my colleague, and it's I'm surprised to see that the building, it's a beautiful looking building, it's going to enhance the area, so I will be also voting yes.
Mr. Graves?
I see no negative impact on the community, therefore I'll be supportive of this application.
Mr. McNeil?
I would also agree that the building, as it is an eyesore. The proposed building will be aesthetically pleasing to the community, and I also plan to vote yes.
Ms. Scott?
Yes, I concur with what my colleague said. I also thought the building itself, the design was very nicely done. It's a modern building on Morris Avenue. It looks good. So it's a very clean application and no negative impact, so I will also be voting yes.
And Mr. Wiley?
So it said it's a clean application, no negative impacts, not a detriment. Improvement to the site, nice and attractive.
As for myself, I feel the variants are justified in that the property is particularly well-suited for the proposed use. The intended improvements will really improve what presently exists. I will vote yes for this, but in closing, I just want to say the architect, Mr. Zwartz, you did a great job, a beautiful building. So I too will vote yes. May I have a motion and a second to adopt the resolution?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board grant that variances applicable to this application and that council is directed to prepare a resolution consistent with the board's decision.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Wiley,
Yes.
Mr. Benega,
Yes.
Ms. Scott,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. McNeil,
Yes.
Mr. Graves,
Yes.
Mr. Champy,
Yes.
October 23rd, I'll put it on the agenda for a resolution and pass it.
Great. Thank you very much, and have a great night, and truly appreciate your time.
Mr. Chairman, there be no further business coming before the board this evening. I move that we adjourn.
Second, before you do
All in
that.
favor?
Aye.
Wait a minute.
You can adjourn, absolutely.